Hey everyone, it's thank you for taking my time today to discuss remote patient monitoring and how Redox can help either health systems easily adopt remote patient monitoring solutions or remote patient monitoring solutions just fully interoperable and easily integrated with their provider partners. A few webinar logistics to get started. So 20 minutes of content, and I will time the questions. The easiest way to ask a question is there's a question button at the bottom. If you ask it there, we go from there. Very echoey. I apologize. We're all stuck in the home office. I hope that maybe if I lean in, it can improve. So I do apologize for that. As you know, with COVID-19, we're all stuck from home. So let's hope that the home internet holds out and that the sound is a little bit better. Thanks for calling it out, Karen. I'll change this camera as I lean into this. Okay, so getting into what we're going to cover today, we are going to go through how we define remote patient monitoring. You know, when it comes to digital health, there's really no strong agreement on what everyone means when they say it. So we'll go through a definition for here, and then we'll go through how Redox supports integration for remote patient monitoring solutions, and then we'll identify a few next steps that you can take, whether you're a developer creating a remote patient monitoring solution, if you're a remote patient monitoring solution vendor that needs to scale to a lot of healthcare organizations, or if you're a provider organization that is looking for strategic remote patient monitoring solutions to adopt. So to get us started, for the sake of this webinar, we are going to look at remote patient monitoring as the use of technology to track patient health and to stay connected with caregivers outside of traditional care settings. The goal of all remote patient monitoring programs is to improve adherence, curb readmissions, and improve patient outcomes. So this is an important part of digital health, where basically through the use of devices, through the use of engagement platforms, just communication over text even, caregivers can now stay in touch with their patients and track their important metrics over time away from the traditional four walls of a care setting. And this allows for a lot of efficiencies in how healthcare is delivered. So, why we decided to spend some time talking about this and how Redox supports these solutions really starts with COVID-19. COVID-19 has made it very apparent that we need ways to treat more patients without simply calling them in to an outpatient clinic or keeping them admitted in a hospital. We need to have those beds open in acute settings, and for patients that don't feel comfortable coming in traditional ways, we need ways to track their progress and ensure that they have positive outcomes. So when we think of remote patient monitoring and why it's such an important part of digital health, and why we think it's so important that healthcare organizations take advantage of the amazing solutions available to them on the marketplace today, is, number one, it can minimize the length of hospital stays, frees up those beds and allow patients to go home. Traditionally, if you have a patient, let's say you're tracking a heart arrhythmia and you don't feel confident or you're worried about how that patient is doing after surgery or whatnot, they may have to just stay where they are able to be checked in on by nurses or use, in-care setting devices. But with robust modern remote patient monitoring programs, you can send a patient out knowing that you're going to have access to data of important metrics, so that you can intervene. You can call them back in. You can reach out to the patient if something is going awry, and you can prevent a readmission or a catastrophic event. Second, right, it can reduce the number of in-person visits. There's a lot of visits where people come in to check in on how things are going and to get new baseline metrics. With the right remote patient monitoring solutions, that data is just readily available. The patient doesn't have to come in. It can be made available and referenced by a caregiver or a care team in a variety of ways. So it really helps, especially in these COVID-19 times where we are trying not to bring in as many patients into the four walls and do as much care as possible virtually. Additionally, right, it can cut down the number of emergency readmissions. If you have an at-risk patient, the ability to set baselines and identify, important biometric trackers, you can identify, through algorithms, through best practices, if a patient is trending downward, and can you bring them in before it really hits rock bottom. Additionally, remote patient monitoring solutions can allow patients to stay at home longer. Really, it's building off of the first three, but with COVID-19, it's more apparent than ever. A lot of patients don't want to be in these places, but sometimes they need that additional care if they're going to have a positive outcome, and that constant monitoring. And a lot of this can now be done with remote patient monitoring, sometimes combined with home health programs and whatnot. And then finally, I think one thing that's really interesting about remote patient monitoring programs that I don't know if it gets discussed enough is that when done properly and through these full service solutions that a number of our vendor partners offer, and what I've seen on the market, is it really allows an improved distribution of tasks across different personnel skill levels. It allows caregivers to operate at the top of their license. If you think about it, a good remote patient monitoring program is able to collect data, and then it's able to apply algorithms or best practices from studies on top of that, which then allows that solution to triage how information is made available to caregivers. So if everything's trending well, the solution should be able to do a simple report that anyone on the caregiving team or care coordination team can reference. And then as things start to require further analysis and assessment and potentially even intervention, you can start to escalate who needs to look at this information only at the point when it's needed. We know providers are dealing with alert fatigue. We know they're dealing with data fatigue. So remote patient monitoring programs, it allows you to collect all that data, and then it allows you to only make available what is actionable at this point, what needs to be addressed in an automated or in a smarter way than just simply a provider has to look at everything that's coming in. So we believe remote patient monitoring is super important, and we're excited to be a part of helping develop these solutions and get them in use at health systems so that patients and providers both benefit. So this is just a really quick overview again of how is that data collected in a efficient remote patient monitoring solution. We really break it down into, this data can be collected in a number of ways. So one, a remote patient monitoring solution could have a proprietary device, right? They could have something that they developed. It could be a glucometer, it could be their own pulse oximeter. It could be something that this solution supplies the patient with, then the patient interacts with it to collect data. The data, it could be, right, they wear it, they interact with it daily, what have you. There's a variety of vendors out there that have their own proprietary devices that patients can be enrolled and used. Additionally, there are remote patient monitoring programs that can make use of consumer devices. So we know that quantified self data and wearables for patients, most of these devices are not medical grade, right? They're not FDA cleared. You can't simply, oh, it looks like the numbers are bouncing. I wonder if my internet died. Anyways, even though these devices might not be medically cleared, there are remote patient monitoring solutions that can make use of the data collected and then have something on top of that that can be leveraged. So a really good example of this is if you're a fall risk patient, you can make use of a personal wearable, a non-medically grade wearable, to collect data that could make it apparent if a patient is trending downwards. And then the solution itself can have, either a remote care team or something else on top of it, which allows that patient to be engaged with and for that catastrophic event to hopefully be avoided. And then finally, remote patient monitoring doesn't have to be a device. It doesn't have to be something that you wear on your wrist and is constantly checking your pulse or whatnot. Remote patient monitoring can be handled through communication. There's a lot of remote patient monitoring that's handled for behavioral health, which is done via text message and getting baseline scores, and can allow patients at risk to be triaged and reached out to if needed. So just a little bit about setting the base of how we talk and think about remote patient monitoring. So where Redox fits in is, so Redox is not a provider organization. We don't care for patients, and Redox is not a producer, or we don't have a remote patient monitoring solution. What Redox is a healthcare interoperability platform that allows remote patient monitoring solution vendors to integrate their solutions with provider organizations and the point of care systems that are used there, primarily electronic health records, but other systems as well. And then Redox also allows provider organizations to readily adopt, a bunch of these amazing solutions that now exist without the usual IT burden that you run into when it comes to traditionally adopting and integrating, third-party solutions into your existing provider organization technology stack. So what we've developed here today is what we call our rapid deployment program. So our rapid deployment program is a proven scope that we can promise you can get integrated either as a remote patient monitoring solution. You can start bidirectionally exchanging data securely with provider organization customer in 2 weeks. Or again, as a provider organization partner, you can adopt a remote patient monitoring solution in 2 weeks. It's important to call out that our rapid deployment scope is a simple scope. It is a scope that is designed to get a product live and operational. And it is not the full extent of how the product could be integrated. Maybe it's not even the best practice of how that product could be integrated, but especially in times like COVID-19, anything helps, right? Anything that prevents an in-person visit is valuable. So we've defined a scope that we can promise our partners can get live very, very quickly. And then if you want to extend that, or you can use the full weight of the Redox platform and our capabilities as well. We just won't commit to a 2-week timeline. So going into that, for folks who aren't aware with Redox, who we are and what we do, I'll just cover it quickly. I'm not going to do the full sales pitch, but Redox we are a interoperability platform. We like to think that we build scalable infrastructure for healthcare data exchange for the entire industry. And how that works is we have a proprietary platform that allows us to ensure data is securely communicated between entities in a standardized way. And how this breaks out is that our vendor partners interact with a modern API interface, and they're able to send and receive information with authorized provider organization partners using that API. So there's an endpoint that they establish to receive data. They post message calls to us, which we pass along to the health system, and they're able to use a consistent data format. On the provider organization side, what we do is we actually do an implementation that allows us to make use of whatever sources of healthcare data need to be integrated with. So in your average provider organization technology stack, you're going to have an electronic health record system. So this could be Epic if you're a large academic medical center. This could be Athena Health if you're a practice. This could be WebPT if you're physical therapy. There are hundreds of ONC certified EHRs. Around 50 make up the majority of the marketplace, in which you will find in caregiver organizations around the country. And what we do is we have developed a platform that allows us to connect to and send and receive data with these systems using whatever they make available. For folks who aren't aware, there is wild variance in how these sources of healthcare data, these electronic health records, software systems and other systems in use at healthcare organizations, how they structure data, how they make data available. It could be via an API. It could be via a traditional HL7 interface. It could be an on-prem system. It could be an in-the-cloud system. It could want to use a direct address to send. There's so many different ways. We can get into that in a different webinar. If you reach out to the Redox team, we'll talk you through it. Basically, all you need to know is that every single provider organization has a technology stack. And within that technology stack, they have software that they use to provide and document care. And if you are a third-party solution, which creates a technology solution to help the provider organization operate and perform some function, you're going to need to be able to send and receive data with that primary source system, because that is where the patient record kept comprehensive. That is where providers deliver and receive care. And Redox allows you to do that with an API consistent way. And then from the healthcare organization side, Redox is able to meet you wherever you are. We have a number of different tools that allow us to make use of literally whatever your system is using. We've proven that over the period of our existence. So how that shakes out is, right, we connect to the existing source system, and then we have a number of data sets that vendors, it defines everything from, order information, scheduling information. We'll get into it later, but this is API data models that folks use, and they're standardized across all the partners you connect to. And what's really interesting and why we call ourselves Scalable Infrastructure and why we call ourselves a network is that the way Redox works is that each organization connects to us once. And then they use that single connection to exchange data with any number of partners. And what I'm calling out here is the really interesting thing is that from the provider organization side, when a provider organization gets connected to Redox, there's that initial implementation. There's an initial implementation where we have to go in and make sense of what your technology stack is and what it's capable of doing, and then use our platform to get connected so that you can therefore adopt solutions and exchange data using our standardized way. And what's interesting and what's called out here is that if you are totally new to the Redox network, there's a level of work required to get connected. But if you look at number 2 and 3, as healthcare organizations in our network adopt multiple digital health solutions, the work required goes down over time. There are core things that need to happen initially. There are things that need to happen in each project. And then when you get to the point like on number 3, if there is solutions that are sharing the same data needs, it really comes down to an authorization, basically a legal contract. It's not a technical thing. So this is how Redox is able to offer, these 2-week integration timelines. It's building on our network and it's building on the scope that we are defining. So the final thing here is just a reminder that, our job is to keep data secure in transit and make it available between partners, provider organizations, and remote patient monitoring solutions. That's what we do. So the one thing I want to call out is the extensive work that we do to make sure that the Redox platform meets and exceeds industry best practice certification for security. And that's something that our partners all benefit from. So let's get to the rapid deployment scope for remote patient monitoring. So the scope that we are able to say we can help you integrate in just 2 weeks is defined as follows. So it is an order out from a provider organization, and this order basically provides the patient enrollment information that allows a remote patient monitoring solution to associate, values that they are documenting with that patient, and then creates that ability for the caregiver to review that information in their EHR at the point of care. And then it's results in. So this is from the remote patient monitoring solution itself. Results can be then filed back to the EHR and delivered to the healthcare organization. And these can be discrete values, right? Like it can literally be a specific reading that is consistently updated, or it could be results in the form of a contextual report. It could be a PDF document. It could be, but the gist of it is an order out and then results in. And then how that works in the Redox world is that from a remote patient monitoring vendor side, this means you are going to be interacting with 2 of these 4 APIs. So again, our APIs, it is a defined set of data and a clearly documented data schema that you build against for your application. And this is how you're going to structure a message, and this is how messages are going to be received. So for data that's coming to you, when we do an install, it's either going to make use of the Redox orders data model or Redox's patient admin data model. And if you review that documentation, you'll see how that allows us to include important information about the patient, the demographics, and then things like identification so that you can associate the message coming back in and the data that you've collected with that patient record. And then for data going back into the provider organization, you will make use of either our results or a media data model. So again, this is how you're able to file discrete or contextual information into an EHR in a way that we can guarantee in that 2 weeks. I do want to call out one more time, right? The Redox platform, we have 22 data models. There's many different sets of data that you can exchange using Redox. This is what we're committing to for this rapid deployment. If it doesn't meet your needs, it doesn't mean we can't help you integrate. It's just we won't commit to the 2-week timeline. So how does that work out from the provider organization side? What needs to be available from that? I talked through how provider organization implementation is different from how a remote patient monitoring solution will interact with Redox and exchange data with Redox. For the rapid deployment model, the provider organization in question, for us to commit to the 2 weeks, the provider organization in question has to be able to make available an outbound order or ADT HL7 feed, or have API access to the equivalent on the EHRs, Allscripts, Athena Health, or Greenway. Again, we can power this integration with any EHR and with other mechanisms, but this is for the rapid deployment model. This needs to be available at the source system. And one reason we picked this as well is because this is very often available. And then finally, for the result information coming back in, the health system, the EHR, needs to be able to accept an inbound HL7 MDM or ORU feed or have API access, again, over Allscripts, Athena Health, or Greenway. There's other APIs where we may be able to do it in rapid deployment, but we're not willing to commit to that specifically. So then we've also called out, right, Redox powers integrations beyond rapid deployment. There's many other ways that we can support remote patient monitoring solutions, many other ways we can provide to organizations. We currently have over 1,000 live integrations across around 800 different provider organizations, and we're exchanging a billion patient messages a year using the network today, and it's growing all the time. So this is something, we'll get into that if you have those needs, but again, in the time of COVID-19, it was really important for us to call out a way that we could tell both remote patient monitoring solution vendors and then for organizations that there's a way to stand up solutions very quickly to help you deal with the influx and the unique challenges we face today. So here's a quick overview of what a Redox implementation looks like. I won't go into all the steps, but there's a few phases. So there's kickoff and connectivity. So if it's an organization, obviously needs to be able to exchange data with the Redox platform. And this is primarily accomplished, with a VPN or with authenticating with an API. And then when we're setting up an integration, this is where we take both organizations through exchanging information. And the configuration is at the Redox level. So the Redox level is where we build a configuration which ensures standard data exchange on both sides. And then, of course, there is prepping to go live, and then when that data is flowing. And after that data is flowing, Redox provides 24/7 monitoring and support for the length of the connection. If you want to learn more about this, if you engage with the Redox team, we'll obviously take you through it. So that is our rapid deployment model for remote patient monitoring. So I'm going to review it really quickly. It's us saying that you can stand up a solution where you're able to enroll a patient in a remote patient monitoring solution. You're able to allow the remote patient monitoring solution to file important information back to your EHR, to the caregivers, using this scope. And we promise that in 2 weeks, as long as the provider organization is able to meet these criteria, if their tech stack meets those criteria. If they don't meet those criteria, we can still get you integrated. We can still stand up integration. It's just the timeline is going to vary. And we can talk to you. We'll set an expectation once we're discussing with you and your partner. So, we're just gonna go through next steps, and then I see there's 3 questions already. If you have additional questions, I'm happy to cover them. So I see there's 3 next steps after consuming this content. Again, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend some time with me in my home office. So if you're new to healthcare, if you're an innovator, an entrepreneur, there are tools that we make available to you to demystify what is possible when building digital health solutions. So if you go to developer.redoxengine.com, you can see how we structure healthcare data. It's always going to be standardized and consistent. And then you can even use developer tools to start sending and receiving data as if you were integrated with the health system, so you can better understand the workflows that are available to you. We also have a public Slack group where we have over 2,000 health tech innovators, a mix of entrepreneurs, developers, other folks that have fallen into the Redox circle some way along the way, where you can collaborate with your peers and ask questions and learn things, and we'd love to see you in there. If you're a remote patient monitoring solution that needs to get integrated, if you're seeing increased demand from your customers that say, hey, I really need to stand this up yesterday so that we can, again, reduce the number of in-person visits, send folks home earlier, et cetera, we're ready to go. We have a implementation team. We have a platform that can scale as fast as you can scale. So if you want to get your remote patient monitoring solution integrated in 2 weeks using that defined scope, give us a call. Go to redoxengine.com/get started. And we will connect you with the right member of our solutions team. Additionally, right, if rapid deployment isn't for you, if you just have other integration needs, just start the conversation. We're here to, help get solutions in the hands of patient providers that make their lives better, and that's why we do what we do. And then finally, if you're a provider organization that's looking for remote patient monitoring solutions to adopt to help you deal with COVID-19 or reach other strategic goals, we have over 40 remote patient monitoring solution partners that cover a wide spectrum of the care continuum that are, again, readily adoptable. They're already connected to Redox. They're ready to go. They've built against us. Again, we can totally commit to this 2-week timeline, especially with partners that are already using Redox. So if you're a provider organization that needs help in reducing the number of in-person visits and managing patient flow, and adopting these solutions in a way that isn't going to take months, and you're able to accommodate, redoxengine.com/contact us. We'll get you connected with the right member of our team. So that is what I have for today. So thank you again for taking time. Apologize for the echo. I hope that the internet stayed going. I'm going to now go through questions, and I also will say, if you have any additional questions, please reach out on anything listed here. Contact is all over our website. You can reach out to me directly. If you've interacted with Redox, I've probably sent you emails. So we will go into the questions now. So I'm going to pull this up. So I'm going to start answering. Good to hear about RPM. I will like to be able to route a live stream from a remote location in a clinic or ER. Guessing stream will be 250 kilobits a second to 1 megabyte or second. So when you say stream, do you mean, I don't know exactly what that means, but that type of message size is not an issue. So again, Redox, the platform, powers real-time bi-directional exchange. And it's either messages, messages are sent via HL7 interface, or it can be inbound media files. And we have ways to deal with file size and work with you. So if you need to elaborate further, feel free, Rick, but I don't think that would be an issue, and you should reach out to our solutions team. Correction clinic or ER. Yeah, again, Rick, it just depends on what software system the ER is using. So obviously some EHRs use different, some ERs, use different electronic health record softwares. We have a really interesting partner called Vital, which is making a new ER solution. Another one named Amopti, which helps with triage. We do a lot of things in ER, and we'd love to help you. Please reach out. Okay, Rick, I'll reach out to you. Right. What is the, okay. So we have Karen. Could this be used for new patient enrollment forms sent out remotely? Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is an interesting thing about like how, we're, for this specific webinar, we're catering it to remote patient monitoring, but the power of the Redox solution is that it can be used for a variety of ways. And what we offer is that secure, stable data exchange back and forth. So, new patient enrollment forms, totally, right? Like if your solution, you receive an order message, the order message has demographics about the patient. It says who they are, what their contact information is, and then it allows in the order a provider can pick, what program to enroll them in, or if it's coming from a specific, right? If it's coming from a physical therapy, you might have already built in best practices of what you follow up and what you enroll. So it can really help with the double documentation and allow you to automate a lot of those processes for patient enrollment. Yeah, that order function, and then results in, and then the files that if the patient fills something out, sending it back in. This is the exact workflow that you could use that could achieve that in an integrated way. So you're already thinking about it, right, Karen? So if you have a specific use case, again, reach out. We could definitely do that. So start answering. Scott Long. Notice Epic is not an EHR listed in the rapid deployment 2-week timeline. Can you offer any insight to the timeline of an Epic EHR integration provider? Super good question, Scott. So I think, that probably was confusing. So when it comes to the rapid deployment timeline, Allscripts, Athenahealth, and Greenway is for APIs. So if we're going to rely on APIs for the integration, those are the only EHRs that we are currently committing to for rapid deployment at this time. But if it's using an HL7 feed, which is what almost all Epic sites are going to use for this workflow, then it's fine with Epic. So basically in this instance, we could not commit to the rapid deployment if we were leveraging Open.Epic or any of Epic's APIs because Epic, you need to go through their process and it can take time. It can take additional time. But when it comes to using the HL7 interfaces, which are already in use, and they will be in use already at Epic sites because these are large centers with the resources, we'll have no problem with that, right? The provider organization it's at their discretion who they add as endpoints to HL7 interfaces. And we do this all the time. Epic sites actually represent about 20% of our provider organization base. And we have a lot of expertise there. So yeah, it just wouldn't be Epic APIs, but HL7 order out or ADT out, and then MDM or media, or the results or media in is how we would commit to rapid deployment in an Epic site for this workflow. Okay. So those are the questions in there. I can go to the chat window. So Jane is asking, fantastic platform, how complicated have the business contracts been with the different institutions? My experience has been that once these contracts yeah, totally. Jane, you are correct. So this is actually a really good point to call out. So in Redox, in all the integrations that we power, we really say that there's three trust models. So the primary trust model that Redox uses today is business associate agreements. So this is when one of our vendor partners enters into a business associate agreement with a provider organization so that they are able to provide a service and help the provider organization perform their core functions. So this is basically how provider organizations adopt any type of technology, whether it's Microsoft for hosting, whether it's an interface, and whatever. Like everyone uses BAAs, and that's going to be the trust model there. And yes, in order for this to be powered in that way, the RPM solution and the provider organization need to enter in that agreement. In that agreement, the provider organization is a covered entity. The RPM solution is a business associate, and then Redox actually serves as a sub-business associate to the RPM solution because we perform function for them. So that's legally how it works. And yes, if we're using that trust model, we do have to go through all of those legal hoops. One interesting thing there is, again, I said Redox is a network where we were talking about how once an organization connects, right, some of the work has already been done. So an interesting thing there is that if you're connecting to one of the 800 provider organizations that already use Redox for a new integration, the fact that we've already gone through connectivity, security, all those types of things can accelerate those discussions quite often because we've jumped through those hoops. But yes, attorneys make things take additional time. So how do you record the readings to the EHR? So again, we work with what the EHR wants and also what the provider organization wants. When it comes to the workflow that we've identified, so we're talking about results in or media in. So results is actually going to be in an EHR. There's going to be a place where results are filed and the information is populated there. So right, this happens all the time with labs and other types of testing, and we leverage that as well. So it's going to show up in where they review results, and it'll be associated with the patient or the order. We'll get into the workflow there, but that's how that works. And then media is really for, like PDFs and other types of documents, and that usually there's a media tab, and again, that can file into an EHR and be associated with the patient record in how that is structured in the EHR. It depends on EHR, but again, that's usually where it's going to go. We didn't talk about it in this because we're not committing to it for rapid deployment, but Redox also has a flow sheet data model, and a flow sheet is actually in the EHR. It's usually custom build, but a flow sheet can be a specific value, and we can also file if it's like a reading that goes to a flow sheet row. Apologies if this is epic talk, if that's called something else, but if there's like a discrete value that is tracked over time and goes to a very specific spot in the EHR, we can also do that via integration. And then additionally, there's also sometimes where we make use of what's called device. So a lot of EHRs are set up where you, kind of like an order, but you associate a reading with a device. So then the patient can have a device and we can file it there. Again, not a rapid deployment, but many, many different ways that we can support data going back into an EHR. And when you talk with us, with the solution team, we'll help you figure out the best way to do that. And for now, we've just been talking about what's the fastest. Again, we also want to do the best for you and for your partner. And there's a number of things that you can take advantage of. Don, so is Redox considering the support for DICOM images, especially ultrasound images? Yes, we're definitely considering it. We do not have the product support for it at this time. So it's been on our roadmap. The reality is that most use cases today of where DICOM images are being used, there's already really deep integration with PACS systems, and there's kind of just a status quo of how that's happening. It's more rare where there's this type of like third party that's not this core technical infrastructure piece or operational piece of a provider organization where they're using DICOM. So it's come up a lot and it's on it, but that is currently not something we do just because the market that we serve, the type of third party digital health solutions which are augmenting and extending the traditional care systems don't play around in that as much because there's already these like core legacy things in place. And then Edward, what does it also set up, implement, and monthly fees for integration of Redox into our RPM software? Is it per EHR vendor? So really good question. So the fee structure, you'll need to connect you with the solutions team, but it is per organization. So it's not EHR vendor. So let's use an example here in our backyard. So if UW Health adopted your RPM solution, let's say they partnered with you to help treat cardiac care patients. Let's say you have an RPM solution that is specifically for AFib patients, and you have a device and it tracks heart arrhythmias, and you have a caregiver team which is able to reach out and work with patients ahead of time and identify if they're about to have a catastrophic event, call them back, so on and so forth. So we would charge a license fee to connect you with and keep you connected with UW Health over an integration. And the way pricing happens is going to be based on that organization, and then it is a monthly or annual fee to stay connected to that. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I'm going to connect you with the sales folks. The pricing is really dependent on your unique use case to a certain extent. So I'd rather have you connect with them. So Edward, either email me directly or else, actually I'll have your name from the registration. So I will have someone reach out to you with more information. So, okay. Folks, I think that's all the questions. Again, I guess I'll leave you with this, is that remote patient monitoring is we believe a really important part of digital health. As a interoperability platform that supports digital health vendors and helps provide organizations adopt these solutions, we know that there's a lot of great solutions out there that don't get adopted because, frankly, provider organizations have a lot of fires that are directly in front of them. And sometimes, improvements and creating a better experience and adopting technologies, it just falls on the list, and by no fault of their own, right? It's just there's more immediate things right in front of you. But with COVID-19, we're in a really interesting position where these remote patient monitoring solutions that exist for a reason and have really, really interesting ways to help evolve how care is delivered and received are now a priority. It's no longer a nice to have. It is super important to find ways that you can care for patients virtually, that you can have fewer in-person stays, and so that you can clear beds in acute settings, whether it's an inpatient setting or whether it's even a long-term care facility. The more that we can keep those open at this point is obviously very important, and there's no real end in sight, right? So it's really important for us to want to help both RPM solutions that we believe are important to the future of how healthcare is delivered and received, and then also provider organizations to, some of the reasons why you haven't been able to adopt these technologies is because the traditional way that integration happens, the way that systems are meant to work together. And that's something that we're working on every day to make easier so that really valuable solutions get to folks that need them most. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. Follow any of these contact details to reach out for more. Really hope we can either help you develop an RPM solution, help you scale your RPM solution, or help you find an RPM solution that can help your provider organization. So that's all I got for today. Have a good one. Stay healthy, everybody.